Hi, everyone. This is Alexandra from Hear Me Roar, and welcome to day 4 of Cacao Talk. So to begin, let's have a sip of cacao. So today's cacao was made with star anise, a little bit of vanilla, and some date syrup. And I put very little of each of those things. But yeah, that's the warm, comforting cacao for today. So let's go into the topic. Now, this just happened to me last night, so I'm still in the processing of everything. But of course, I took it as a beautiful sign to come on and share with you guys just how I navigate through it, and maybe some like aha moments that I've gathered so far as I go through this process, and knowing and trusting that something will resonate with you in some way. So, how to manage a 3 a.m. emotional trigger. So last night, actually, as I was going to bed last night, I had started to feel a little just like a little uncomfortable, a little kind of stuck and stuff. And so I decided to just, take a bath and go to bed a little bit early. And, I didn't know yet if this was going to be something that required deeper work in a deeper container for me to create, or if this was just, again, like I've spoken in other videos, an opportunity where I had opened something up to release another layer, right? So I was kind of feeling a little stucky last night, took a bath, went to bed early, and then around 3 a.m. this morning, I just shot up in bed, and it was like I was hyperventilating, and I felt like I was going to have a panic attack. And I was like, "Ooh, here it is." I'm like, "Okay, here it is. It's coming through right now. It's okay." And I've always shared with you guys before, I take a breather and I step back. And so I wanted to just walk with you through what I did to show up for myself, and then maybe go into a little bit of details of the topic of the trigger. So I shot up in bed. I was like hyperventilating. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And then one of the first things that I do in those moments is, I step back. I allow myself to drop into my body. Now, for a very long time, this was super counterintuitive, because at least for me in the past, when I would have anxiety attacks or panic attacks or just overwhelmed, my desire, is to flee, to get out of that scenario, and not just physically, like if I'm like in a situation where I'm uncomfortable, but also kind of like detach from my body and then kind of go into my head. And obviously for many years, that was not beneficial at all. Later I've discovered that the more I allowed myself to do that is when I allow myself to get into my head, and then all of a sudden something that could have been the initial trigger, whether it was small or big, by getting out of my body and then allowing myself to get in my head, I would just, it would make the situation bigger than it needed to be, right? And so last night I recognized it. And so the first thing I did was I dropped into my body. I closed my eyes and I did, again, what I called the other day a body scan. I dropped into my body and I said, okay, where in my body is this originating from? Because this feeling of an anxiety attack coming up, I'm like, where is this originating from? And once again, it was in my solar plexus. And if you guys have been listening the last few days, solar plexus have been coming up a lot. It's what I'm working through this month. It is what it is. And so I dropped into my body. I recognized where it was. And once I recognized what it was, the second thing I do is I allow myself to become the witness. Okay, so what does that really mean? Again, I've read many different books, and I'm happy to share them with you if you guys are interested. But I choose to subscribe to the idea that we are not our emotions and our feelings and our thoughts and our beliefs. We aren't those things. Those things exist. Those things are energy, or they're vibrations that exist around us, right? They will always exist around us. and we get to have the human experience of how we interact or embody, not become in the sense, but kind of like interact with, maybe is a better word, react or live life based on that vibration. So because I believe in that, I have come to learn that when we become the witness of our own situation that we're going through, and we don't identify with the emotion. So for example, in that moment, yes, I was feeling like a nervousness or overwhelmment, right? So I drop into my body, I figure out where it is, and then I step back, and instead of saying, oh, I'm feeling anxious here, or I'm feeling overwhelmed here, I step back and I just pivot my terminology and I say, oh, there is anxiety here. There is overwhelmed here. There is a trigger here. So it's just a slight pivot in the dialogue I'm using, but trust me, it is absolutely life-changing, right? So I dropped into my body. I connected with where my body is this manifesting from. And then I stepped back and I allowed myself to be the witness. So I started to say, okay, what do I see here? What do I hear here? What is going on here, right? And in doing that, that's also what I call is when I start creating a container for myself, right? I start creating a space and giving myself grace to acknowledge and to validate that there's a heavy emotion that's needing some love and attention in this moment, right? So I dropped in, I step back, I become the witness, and then I just hold the energy. Sometimes I receive the message right away, like what the root cause of this is, so why is there overwhelm here, or why is there anxiety here, right? So that's like the next step of questions is, okay, I identified the emotion, but why is this here, or what is this trying to tell me? What past trauma or what past narrative is this trying to give me a clue about, right? And sometimes I do hear the answer right away. Sometimes it goes straight into like, I don't know, a childhood belief or something, right? Or a trauma that happened. And sometimes it takes a while, And so during that time, I'm just sitting there, I'm just breathing. I'm just telling myself that it's safe, that it's okay for me to feel, that it's okay for me to express, that it's just a moment that will pass. So I'm not trying to suppress something, and I'm also not trying to not validate something. I'm just trying to stay calm, almost like, the eye of the storm, you're staying calm, right? So I'm allowing myself to be witness and to stay calm as I hold the container of this emotional trauma that's going on. Last night it did take a few moments. It wasn't right away, but it did take a few moments of me, just being there and holding space. I even put one hand on my heart, and I had one hand on my part in my stomach, my solar plexus, where I felt this. And then eventually I heard what was going on, and sometimes, like I said, sometimes I don't hear it right away, and sometimes I don't hear it at all. And it takes a couple of sessions, a couple more triggers or moments of me needing to create the safe container for my inner child and that inner energy to finally feel safe and comfortable to express itself, right? So for me personally, last night, finally the phrase that came up is, I am a burden. And I was like, wow. I'm like, okay, so what is going on there? I started that inner child started to come forward, from when it first started, the first time that I started subscribing to the narrative that I was a burden. And she just started showing me these very important times in her life, or in my life, because this is me I'm talking about, in my life, where almost like she was trying to show me evidence, like when this happened, see, and when this happened, and when this happened, and when this happened. So again, as the witness and the one who's holding the container for her, I just allowed her to express herself, right? I kept saying that makes sense. And what else would you like to express about that? What else would you like to say about that? And last night, she was just showing me moments in her life where she started were to her were evidence that she was a burden, right? And I was just holding the energy for her, and I just kept asking her if there was anything else she wanted to share. And at one point, she didn't. She just wanted to be held. You know, it's fascinating when you start doing inner child work, because once you're in it and you start going through these phases, you'll start noticing how the energy inside you changes. So when I first began, you know, that part of me was really shut down. She didn't want to say anything. She was really afraid. She goes, no, I can't express myself. And then as I made her feel comfortable, you know, being able to express herself, she started to express herself. But then as she expressed, it was becoming overwhelming. So all she really wanted to do was be held. And so it's just like a visual thing. I visualized myself, you know, she came to my lap and I was holding her, and I was just telling her, you know, you're safe, and you're free to express whatever you want, or to ask for whatever you want, you know. And then she kind of shared a little bit more, but I can tell that this particular trigger probably will be a couple of sessions, meaning that there'll be times that I will commit to myself to make throughout the day in my meditation practice, or maybe just add an extra time to meditate so I can sit with this part of myself and continue to allow that healing, continue to allow that transmutation to happen, so that that inner child no longer is attached to the belief that she is a burden, right? So yeah, that was interesting, and that's kind of what came up for me last night. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm still processing it. I was talking to a friend on the phone earlier, and you know, when I first finally said it out loud to someone else, there was still tears that, you know, were stuck in my throat. I'm like, okay, this is still heavy. So then after I spoke with them, I got off the phone and I sat a little bit more. And I mean, this is what I talk about. This is what I mean by that. It's a daily thing, you know. It's so important to cultivate a relationship with ourselves that is, you know, filled with a lot of self-love and acceptance. I don't get triggers every day. I don't, you know. At one point in my life, when I was very overwhelmed and suffering from heavy social anxiety, yeah, I would have a trigger multiple times a day. And I've gotten to the point where I don't have them every day, but I do have them once in a while. And I don't believe at all that that's something that's going to eventually just magically go away. I have accepted, again, self-acceptance. I have accepted that that part of me is an important part of me that I get to co-create in life with. You know, it's not something to get rid of. It's not even something to heal, because I'm not broken. I'm not sick. All that's going on is that all emotions are energy. And for some reason, somewhere along my life, in the life experiences I had in that moment, I attached, just because lack of self-awareness, and it's just part of the human experience, I attached to that vibration and energy, and never really had the opportunity to process that and to release that attachment. So does that necessarily mean that I'm unhealed or I'm broken? No, it just means that I haven't had the opportunity to release that, right? And so I've just kind of really shifted that narrative for myself, that this is not something, I'm not broken, I'm not sick, there's nothing wrong with me. It's not something to get rid of. It's just a part of me that is a very important component of me having my human life experience and co-creating with it in order to be able to live the authentic self that I want to be and show up into the world with unconditional love, not just for others, but for myself, you know? So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys today on Cacao Talk. The process that I do, which again, remember, is I drop down into the body, connect to where in my body is this anxiety or overwhelmed or fear or whatever emotion comes up is sitting. I step back and I become the witness, which means I start creating the container, and I give myself the dialogue and the grace and the permission to express whatever needs to come up. And then I just, you know, the third step really kind of all depends on whether or not it's something that just needs to be released, or something that needs a deeper conversation that will last in one session or will take a few days. It could be even a few weeks to work through. So that is Cacao Talk for today. As always, you guys are welcome to leave any comments or questions or, topic ideas for the future. And I mean, this is why I do the work that I do. This is, I started going into energy work and learning modalities for myself. And when I saw how powerful they were and how crucial they have been in my life path, that's when I decided, like, I want to do this. I really want to do this for others. So you're also always welcome to reach out and visit my website and see if there is a way that I can be of service and help you start cultivating that relationship with yourself. So thank you again so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.